Awesome. So, hey, welcome everybody. If you're here with us live or catching the replay, today I'm really excited to have Jakub Grajcar from ZenPilot joining us to talk about all things project management and how to tame the chaos and get more productivity in our agencies. For those that don't know, ZenPilot is an operations consultancy with over 3,000 agency project management makeovers to their name. Also, number one solutions partner for ClickUp. So one of the world's top project management platforms. We're going to get some really great inside info here. So Jakub is currently ZenPilot's content and marketing manager and also host of their podcast Agency Journey. So I'll link that after for everyone if you want to check that out. Definitely worth the listen. Now, project management isn't always the most exciting of topics, but definitely a crucial part for any agency. So I'll hand it over to you, Jakub, and we can dive right in.
Okay, thank you, Leanne. Thank you so much, and really happy to be presenting to you today. Hello, everyone. As Leanne mentioned, my name is Jakub Grajcar. Everybody calls me Kuba, though, so you can call me Kuba too. It's a Robert versus Bob type of situation. And before I joined ZenPilot, I didn't have a good frame for that, but then I met Gray McKenzie, our CEO, and he kind of helped me with that little analogy there. Let me just pull up my slides here. Okay, we got everything in order here. And I'm gonna find the present button in just a moment. So we'll be starting here with a little bit of like trying to make this simple for everyone here when you're thinking about ZenPilot, or whether you're watching this webinar thinking, can this help me solve my problem? And we'll be talking about chaotic project management and what to do about it. So in terms of defining chaos, these are some of the symptoms you might be dealing with right now. I've numbered them 1 to 12, and I would be curious to know from the people in the chat, 1 to 12, which of those speak to you the most, you feel them the most right now, or even just to self-assess, how many of these would you say are true for your team right now? This is how we define chaos: lack of visibility into what everyone's working on, people aren't rowing in the same direction, constantly switching project management tools. We found that teams do that on average every 17, 18, 19 months, and wasting a lot of energy and a lot of work on these migrations when there are actually some more deeply rooted issues that you should be addressing that will prevent you from having to change project management tools so often or at all. And this is all in the service of creating clarity. And I'll define what clarity is later on. Let me check the chat. Did somebody self-identify? 12 is what Leanne's saying. Leadership doesn't know. Oh, Leanne, that's for you. Okay. Leadership doesn't know the available capacity. That's one of the elements of clarity. We define it by role, but we'll get to that in just a second here. Okay, so welcome to the presentation, everyone. Today, we're talking the tools and habits you need to stop chaotic project management. And I'll be talking about the 3 keys as defined by the ZenPilot system, so to speak. So a little bit about us, so you know who's talking to you and who I'm representing here for you today. As a pilot, we help you build a more productive, profitable, and healthy team by streamlining your operations in ClickUp. Some of you may know ClickUp, some of you might not know ClickUp yet. If you've tried ClickUp and you haven't liked it, or you are totally married to your project management system right now and never considering ClickUp, there's still reason for you to watch this presentation. As I alluded before, there's more deeply rooted issues with regards to project management. The tool is not everything. In fact, the tool, in some respects, is the least important thing that you have with regards to your project management and its quality. So we'll be touching about a lot of things that aren't specifically ClickUp related. ClickUp will be used as an example, and it is the tool that we recommend for agencies of a variety of different sizes and a variety of different business models. Still, it'll be relevant for you even if you don't intend on using ClickUp anytime in the future. If you're ClickUp curious, if you're on ClickUp, then this will be especially useful for you, definitely. So historically speaking, the story behind ZenPilot, the ZenPilot founders initially started out as an agency. Then they started building a project management tool themselves. It was called Do Inbound. That is not on the market anymore because what they found is the real issue is in the implementation. The real issue is in how you use the system, the discipline, the habits that you need to actually make the system run smoothly, which is why ZenPilot was born and became ClickUp's first solutions partner. And today we're still ClickUp's highest rated partner. We're in the top tier we get invited to their events. It's pretty nice. What we do is not just ClickUp implementation, but we also do training, coaching. There's pre-recorded training, there's live training. I'll talk a little bit more about it in just a moment as part of what needs to happen in your process, even if you're doing it yourself, to make good project management habits stick. So we do ClickUp architecture design, we do implementation, we do automations and integrations, but there's another part of this that isn't talked about enough, in my opinion, and that's the whole emotional change management journey that's involved in actually revamping your project management and creating clarity in your project management, finally getting to know, for example, whether you have capacity to take on that next project, or knowing what people are working on, are they rowing in the same direction. So what we also do, and what you need to be doing for your team as well, is a little bit of hand-holding, maybe some pep talks, and just trying to make sure that everybody sees this journey as a net positive in the end. It might be difficult along the way, but it will be worth it. As Leanne already mentioned, we've serviced over 3,000 teams thus far with custom implementations. And if you want to learn more about that, go to ZenPilot.com. Speaking of stuff that you can get from ZenPilot.com, I've included some of the links and resources at the beginning here in case any of you need to run. I do believe some of us might be joining from Australia or from other places around the world, so it might be near the end of your working day, etc. Maybe you have somewhere to get to. If so, let me check. Okay, yeah, the chat is all good. If so, go to ZenPilot.com/resources. You'll find free ebooks. You'll find additional video training. You'll also get a taste of the ZenPilot system in ClickUp, because we have a couple templates that you can plug into your ClickUp to see. If you've used ClickUp, there's a lot of ways to set things up. The ZenPilot way of setting things up is very opinionated, but for a reason. And you can check that out by getting our free templates. I also recommend our video training series, everything you need to streamline your agency's operations in ClickUp. The neat thing about this one is if you go to ZenPilot.com/training, there is no form. Okay, you just get a collection of our best YouTube videos and some other resources, so you can get a full training. There's a few hours of videos there, all free. So you can get a deeper dive into everything that I'll be presenting here today. Because, this is just one webinar. I'll give you a high-level overview of the ZenPilot system and answer your questions. Happy to do so. But for deeper dives into particular elements of this, like views or the process library or anything else we'll be talking about here today, I recommend the training. Finally, if you would like to have the easiest and fastest path towards gold standard project management, go to ZenPilot.com/call. Meet our team, get some clarity on where you stand in terms of project management, and we'll help you go through the whole journey. So first, I wanted to talk about why it's important to even dive into this topic. Leanne already mentioned project management can be, it can feel a little bit dull, it can feel a little bit boring, but it's actually one of the most important things that you do, and the quality of your project management affects everything you do. It's a force multiplier, or force. I was looking for like an opposite meaning to multiplier. I came up with dampener, but I don't know if that was the right one. Correct me in the chat if you wanna. It's a force multiplier for good or bad of everything you do. Almost everything you do at an agency is a project or an ongoing activity. It should be captured in one system. It should be monitored, and it should be optimized. If you don't have it written down somewhere, if you can't see what people are doing, that's going to hurt you, and you're basically flying blind. It's an analogy that I've heard ZenPilot people use is like, if you've got like a physical business of you're producing physical products, you can see the assembly line, right? You can see people working on the particular elements of it. They're putting together the packaging, they're putting together the product. If something stops, you can kind of see it from your position as a leader, but not so in a digital agency. And a lot of us are remote and global and distributed right now. So you need to create that kind of visibility for your agency as well. But it's not so easy when everything is online. However, there's ways, and ClickUp and the ZenPilot system is one of those ways. Also, chaotic project management is a great hiding place for major problems. If you don't see what people are working on or how long it's taking them, if you don't have consistent time tracking, then you won't be able to see when your projects are inefficient, where there's delays and handovers, or maybe some tasks are being kind of put off day by day. If you don't have a good system for that, you won't know. Or there might be, in terms of quality, there might be quality assurance steps in your processes that are getting missed. And what's important for me, and kind of part of my background, is I used to work at a software development company. I used to lead a content marketing team of 10. we self-implemented ClickUp to the best of our ability, and I led that charge. But still, I felt like I failed at what we're going to get to, which is the habits piece of implementing good project management and beating away that chaos. I wasn't disciplined enough about not just introducing guidelines, but also making sure that the team stuck to it. And in the end, looking back on it, we did a lot of great things in ClickUp and in terms of our project management, but still, I could have done better for my team. And I was preventing my team members from doing their best work. Thinking about it now, I'm thinking if we had done better project management, if we had created more clarity, that could have affected both their impact at my previous company and also their future track record. So if you're thinking about your team right now, implementing better project management will be a force multiplier of everything you do, helping all of your team members do better work, create better impact now, and giving them a better track record in the future. And finally, and this is especially important for leadership, if you have good quality project management data in terms of how much time and effort went into a project versus the money that it made, for example, to simplify things, right? Because there's profitability, there's utilization, all that stuff that you can dive into in terms of metrics, that enables better business decisions. So if you can see your most profitable projects, most profitable service lines, or if you can check your account managers, how they're doing with their portfolio of accounts, that can affect hiring decisions. That we've even had it where some of our clients, after implementing the system, saw that there was a service line that they were doing that constituted 20% of their work, where the profits were like 4x or a multiplier anyway of what they usually made. They pivoted in that direction, and that changed the money they were making as a business in a dramatic way. So that gets us to the agenda slide. Let me just check if there's anything happening in the chat here. Okay, seems like we're all good. And anyway, Leanne, you mentioned you'll be relaying questions to me, so I won't be checking the chat so much. So here's what we'll try to get through today. It's a lot, and like I mentioned, it's going to be fairly high level, but I want to tell you about ClickUp the tool briefly, why you might be interested in it, why you might want to check it out if you haven't heard of it yet, and definitely let me know in the chat if you have previous experience with ClickUp, because that'll help me understand whether I should talk a little bit more or a little bit less about it. We'll talk about clarity as the end state. The graphic you're seeing on the right here, that's what we call the 1-3-5 formula. The one goal is clarity. The three keys to that goal are tools, habits, and processes. A lot of people think about the tool and think that that is the one key. Some people think about processes. We need SOPs. We need templates in our system. But the most neglected piece is definitely the habits. And we'll be talking about that a little bit more here. And then the 5 stages of a project management transformation is design, build, train, launch, and optimize. And we'll talk about each of those a little in the presentation. I want to show you, in case you want to see something that you can apply to your ClickUp system right now, or other project management tools might be able to support this as well. I want to show you our recommended ClickUp hierarchy, talk to you about our 10 ClickUp or project management commandments. Yours might vary, but this is a good starting point. And if time allows, I'll tell you about building a process library and the role of the ClickUp champion, which is an especially important piece of this whole puzzle. And this is something that, as I was learning the ZenPilot system, it surprised me, but also it makes perfect sense to actually have a role like that defined. We've got separate resources only about the role of the ClickUp champion, so this will be just a high-level overview of that piece, but we'll get into that in a moment. So, starting with, just a moment here. Starting with ClickUp. I started using ClickUp, I believe, in somewhere around 2018. It was still fairly new to the market. At that point, they had no funding. They were kind of running everything themselves. But the main thing about ClickUp and kind of the story behind it is I was looking for a tool that allowed me to... I had very simple needs. I wanted a list of tasks. I wanted to have subtasks, and some of the other tools at the time, like Asana, you had to pay. You had to have a paid version to have subtasks. I was looking for something relatively simple for a small team that I was running at that time, because at that time my team wasn't 10 people; it was closer to like 4 or 5. And I wanted to. This was such a simple need. I wanted to just be able to switch between a board view, so like Trello, if you've used that, and a list of tasks view. Some of the other tools had me choose whether this is a board, whether this is a list. I wanted to have multiple ways to view the same tasks. And ClickUp came in at exactly the right time. And the first thing that made me fall in love with it is the flexibility. I would also say at the time it was the simplicity of it. Right now, I wouldn't call ClickUp necessarily a simple tool, but it still has a relatively friendly UI. And the great thing about ClickUp is that you can set it up in a lot of different ways to do what you want. And also the difficult thing about ClickUp is that you can set it up in a lot of different ways. And that can either lead, within the same organization, if it's a larger one, to very different workflows, even if the tool is the same, or it can lead even in a smaller organization too. You can set up ClickUp in a way that actually gets in the way a little bit. And that's why it's good to have an opinionated system to know how to set it up so that you get the best of the tool without any of the pitfalls. What ClickUp allows you to do briefly is one thing that people maybe not necessarily understand about ClickUp is, okay, it's a project management tool, but they're trying to be more than that and succeeding in some respects. You can set up not just workflows or, views of different tasks. This is a view of overdue tasks. This is a view of tasks assigned to this person. This is a view of tasks for this particular project or with this particular tag or with this, or these are, all for August, for example. But also because of ClickUp's custom fields and the flexibility, it's almost like a no-code product. I've seen, so for example, in our ClickUp instance, we have a tech stack tracker. The rows on the list aren't tasks; they're the tools in our tech stack, and we have custom fields. It's organized almost like a table, you might say. And we've got custom fields of whether you pay for this tool annually or monthly, what's the cost, who's the owner. So there's a lot more you can do. And the nice thing about ClickUp is it all lives within one platform, making it even more important to have it organized the right way. You've got templates with, I mentioned here, date remapping. So what this means is if I'm recording an episode of a podcast, for example, I've got a template that I deploy and I can remap the date so that I just change the date of when the episode is going out, and all of the previous steps, when I'm supposed to record, when I'm supposed to send the video to the freelancer for editing, when I'm supposed to create the thumbnail, etc. All of the rest of the timeline aligns automatically. Once I change that one date. So it saves you a lot of time. You've got built-in docs, you've got wikis, you've got AI, and a lot of quality of life stuff that I like, which is bulk actions or slash commands. You can do a lot in ClickUp with just your keyboard, not touching the mouse. I love it every single time. You're setting up a new task. It's just /me to assign to yourself, /d, and then pick the date to assign the due date, and then /hi to set up to give it that high priority, which is a yellow flag in ClickUp, all without touching your mouse. It's really neat. So with all of that said, and if you have more questions about ClickUp, happy to answer them if you want to talk about the tool a little bit more. But the tool is not everything, as I already alluded. So let's dive into the actual system. I've got, and don't be intimidated by this, I'll explain everything along the way. But this is a Miro board that we've got explaining a lot of the elements of the ZenPilot system. I often get questions about whether the Miro board can be shared. You can probably see that's a little bit messy, so we don't share the whole Miro board, but I'll be showing elements of it on this presentation, so you'll be able to review the... Eduardo is saying that you love Miro. Yeah, we like it quite a bit as well. And let me just mention, okay? ClickUp itself has a whiteboarding feature. Okay, so you can do a whiteboard in ClickUp. Why am I using Miro for this presentation? Is because while at ZenPilot we love ClickUp, we're also realistic about its capabilities. If they've got a new feature, but it doesn't necessarily fulfill the job yet, we won't recommend it. So, I mean, for the purpose of a presentation like this, Miro is better. And now, what I want to start with within the 135 formula is the one. So the clarity, the end state that you should get to. I'll try to get through this relatively quickly. A lot of it, merits a deeper explanation, and I do invite you to particularly zenpilot.com/training for deeper dive YouTube videos on that. But let's just start with a simple system here, or a simple explanation. So first of all, we look at this through the lens of the various agency roles. A good project management system should serve the needs of all of the roles in your agency, from the individual contributor through the account managers and project managers, all the way to leadership and also your clients. So the different roles are going to have, let me just zoom in on that for you, are going to have different types of questions. Individual contributors want to know what is on their agenda today, what do they need to prioritize, and actually this is one of the biggest problems to solve, right? Because I mean, it may seem like small stuff, but multiply it by however many team members, individual contributors you've got in your organization. If you can just give them clarity on what they should do on a given day and what's important, and as a leader, you'll probably know how difficult it is to keep people aligned on what's important and what should be worked on first. If you can just do that, that's already a huge step forward. Then for account managers, you want to see how projects are progressing, what are the results. For project managers, and this is another key piece, knowing capacity, knowing whether you need to reassign work or reschedule. But also capacity is very, very important for both project managers and leadership in the sense of, and especially as an agency, right? You want to take on as many clients as possible without burning out your team. And if you don't know your capacity, or if you don't have data you can trust on capacity, it might be that you can take on more clients, but you're not aware of it. Or it might be that your team is already overburdened and you should hire, for example, expand the team, or look for efficiencies and you don't know about it. So clarity is very, very important in that respect. So leadership needs to know how clients are doing, how the team is doing, how the overall agency health is going, and clients want to know what clients want to know, right? What work has been completed, what the results are, etc. All of this is possible to visualize either in ClickUp or on top of ClickUp data. And let me briefly take you through what that looks like. So for individual contributors, there's more than just this, but the key view is called My Tasks. The My Tasks view is not something that's built in natively in ClickUp. It's a particular way. It's a particular view that's set up a particular way. And within the ZenPilot system, everybody has a My Tasks view, no matter their role. And it's always set up in the exact same way. And that way, what we recommend, if you've ever played around with ClickUp, you know that there's a ton of different ways to organize your tasks, group them, sort them, filter them. What we recommend is you go to the everything level. You group the tasks by due date. And one of the most important rules within our system is the due date, D-U-E, is the due date, D-O, date. Tasks, and particularly subtasks, are so granular, granular enough, I should say, that each task can be done by one person in one sitting, and that sitting should not exceed 4 hours. For some steps in some processes, this will mean that when you're drafting a blog post and you know it'll take you 6-7 hours to draft a blog post, maybe not these days with ChatGPT, right? But in the old days, you know already you need to break it down into 2 or 3 rounds of drafting that first draft. Or maybe I'm just a slow writer, I don't know. But for me, it kind of worked like that. On the other hand, and again, coming back to my podcast publishing example, there's a number of steps that I do ahead of publishing a podcast episode. And that might be doing the thumbnail, the show notes, uploading, doing descriptions, emailing the guest about the podcast. These are discrete steps, but they're really done in one sitting. You want to conflate those into one. I've got a pen in my hand. I don't know why, but okay, we'll roll with it. You want to combine those into one subtask, okay? So you don't have too many subtasks, so that it's not too granular. Within subtasks, you can have descriptions, you can have checklists in ClickUp. And here's an example, or you can have even email templates. So you can include additional detail there, or it can be more than one thing to do within a task. But it needs to be granular enough. And we do recommend quite granular. So this is the My Tasks view. And the beauty of it is when you have all of your work in a single system, you look at your My Tasks view. This is the first thing you look at even before email each day. And this is what you need to do in a given day. Your meetings should be there as well, because your meetings affect your daily capacity. But this is everything for today. You don't have to wonder if there's more to do, because when you're on the ZenPilot system, when you have a proper My Tasks view, it can be a home brew, so to speak. This is the end state you should be striving for, that everything is captured here. I'm not talking about stuff like lunch breaks, because that is not work to be done, but everything else should be here. So that's individual contributors. For account managers, and I'll go through this briefly because this is kind of a deeper topic, and we've got individual videos about that. You can look at the progress on your deliverables. So here you can see the particular deliverables, what their general status is to do in progress, in client review, blocked. And we don't recommend too many statuses here. You can look at the time tracked, you can look at the due date for that whole deliverable, and then the progress and the time estimates and everything related to that. Okay, just checking the chat briefly. Looking good. And let me just keep going through as much of the content as I can within the time we've got here. Also, as an account manager, you might want a client overview. What you're noticing here likely is that this is not the ClickUp UI, but this is built on top of ClickUp data. This is part of a product we've got called ZenPilot Profitability Reports. If you want this, if you want to learn more about this, go to ZenPilot.com and find the profitability product in our top menu. You can go even as far as invoicing and then notes and documentation on particular projects. And so that's for account managers. For project managers, and this is one of the key personas for ClickUp as a tool, you want to have a view on the workload. You want to know where people stand right now, who's got too much work, who's got maybe a little bit of leeway, and there's views in ClickUp that allow that. You want to be able to easily plan and create projects. Templates, ClickUp templates are particularly important here, particularly the process library. You want to be able to remap projects if there's a 2-day delay on something, on one step in the process, for example. You don't want to, and let's say the template has 20 subtasks, you don't want to spend 10 minutes remapping each of those by hand. I mentioned ClickUp has a lot of quality of life features. So one of those is if you go into the Gantt view that you're seeing here, like a timeline of interconnected subtasks leading to the completion of a larger deliverable. If you move one of those, the rest can move as well. So that remaps your whole project kind of in one go. That's really neat. And as a project manager, you need that. Assigning work properly is important. Sorry to go through this a little bit faster, but there's a lot more to talk about. And this is just the end state you want to get into. For leadership, this is, again, our profitability reports product. And you can, this is built in Power BI on top of ClickUp data. If you've got the time, you can build this yourself. But if you want this implemented kind of in an easier way, talk with us. But anyway, you'll be able to see if you've got proper time estimates, time tracking, the billable rates of your team members all baked into ClickUp, and all of this is possible, then you can have a view like this, which tells you what was the amount of hours estimated, hours worked, ultimately letting you know about the profitability of various projects or service lines, etc. I alluded to this already before. This is a time analysis view. Another thing you can set up in ClickUp, and like I mentioned, there's a lot of flexibility. You can also see here, not every line is a task, but in this view, this is what we call the client health tracker. Every line is a client, and you can set it up so that you know that there's what their status is. This due date is when you should kind of leave a fresh update on that client. You can see the health, the NPS, the services you're rendering, and a lot more. Again, this is inspiration. You can build this yourself, and it is possible within ClickUp, and you should have this to create real clarity. I struggled with this at my previous company where we had, recurring weekly meetings, sharing statuses on each project, but we always ran out of time. This should be happening asynchronously in a system you can trust, all in one place, and everybody should be trained to actually be disciplined and be leaving weekly updates like this. Why would the customer be unhappy? Are you happy with the account? Have there been any changes in strategy and timeline? This is a template that you fill out every week. Once you get into the rhythm of it, it actually becomes quite smooth, quite seamless. You can have a look at a team performance. Time reporting is also there. Out of the scope for this presentation, but just to let you know what clarity looks like. And finally, for clients, you can do client portals in ClickUp set up in a particular way. You're able to show them what you want to show them, and not show them kind of the back-end nitty-gritty that maybe they should be seeing. All of this leads to to a systematized business in the end. So this is something that I hope we'll get to also talk about a little bit today. Building a process library is a big step in becoming more systematized and making sure that work is done in the same way each time. And there's a particular setup of a process library that we recommend. And also you can get our library of processes on ZenPilot.com, but that's for a little bit later. So that takes you through the end state. Let me do a little bit of a comma here. This is what clarity looks like in a nutshell, okay? Now, in terms of getting there, I talked about the 3 keys, the tools, processes, and habits. Now we can talk about the steps to actually get there. And what you want to do is you want to design your system, then build it, then train your team, launch it, and then optimize it. And within the optimize step, the role of the ClickUp champion is especially important. So I'll take you through as much of this as I can within this presentation. On the way, we'll talk about the commandments as well. But if you have particular questions, now would be a great time to drop them so that I can make the presentation relevant to you. So one misconception and one thing that we've seen teams do, smaller teams can maybe get away with this, but larger teams are going to run into trouble, is a lot of the teams jump right into step number 4. Pick a tool, launch into that tool. Migration is kind of done continuously. Move as much of your work in there as possible. New work goes in there. Some of the old work is still in the old system. You're kind of got, one foot there, another foot there for a while. And it doesn't create clarity. In fact, it introduces more chaos. So let me take you through what you really should be thinking about and doing. And this, a lot of this alludes to our process. Maybe you don't need to be as detailed with everything. But to give you an idea of what goes into a successful project management makeover and transformation, this is what you should be looking at. At a higher level, I'm going to show you this just briefly. If you're more curious about this, I have a dedicated presentation about it. At a higher level, the kind of higher level metrics that this connects to for an agency is, why do you want to improve project management? Most the simplest, I guess, answer is you want to get more out of the resources you've already got. So increase utilization, to speak the lingo. So one exercise that you can go first is this scorecard of checking your current utilization, where you want to be in terms of utilization. Right now, how many billable versus non-billable hours you've got, how that affects your earnings, etc. So you can start with that. Maybe this is not necessary if you're just looking at having a more productive team. Maybe you can already start with step number 2, and that step should be, you should really talk with your team. And let me give you a good zoom in here so you can see the questions here. Hopefully you can see them. And you should really talk with your team and try to identify the root issues of what's happening. And that goes like, the thought to keep in mind here is that the big things are in the small things. So it's you can ask questions like, how do you start each day to identify, prioritize, and plan your work? You'll hear various answers to that, and some of those answers might be, I've got like a piece of paper on my desk and my work is organized there. And that shouldn't be the case. I mean, I'm not saying ban using pen and paper for organizing your daily thoughts. But within a single day, everybody should be updating a shared system so that this is shared with the team without having to ask about project statuses, where the work is at, what has been completed. And we actually recommend not just, because a lot of teams, they'll have a rule of, at the end of the day, the system should be updated. But what we're talking about is throughout your day, you should be ticking off your list as you go, so that it's even more granular, it's even more up to date, it's even more current what you're working on. So start a task, start a timer, start tracking time on it, and then when you're done with it, close it, move on to the next task. And then when you've got everybody disciplined like that, you can really see, I mentioned you can see the assembly line. In a way, you can see things happening almost in real time, and that's awesome to behold. You've got other questions here that I'm sure you had a chance to read already. You can see some of these are about internal communication habits and routines. Another big topic that we don't necessarily have time to get into here, but one red line that you should have with your team is, if the communication is about a project, it should be in ClickUp or Monday.com or Asana, Teamwork.com, whatever else you're using for your project, but it should be in the system. And if somebody's using Slack too much, they need to be reminded. And that's an important part of the whole system. So from there, you can go into like an assessment of where each of those areas stand. And you don't need to come up with a spreadsheet like that or a questionnaire like that necessarily for yourself right now. What you can do is you can take the agency project management health benchmark. That's on the resources section of our site once again. Okay, somebody needs to jump to another meeting. That's fine. Thank you for joining us. And Hungary. Okay, I'm in Poland here, so we're close. Thanks for joining us. Anyway, so you can take the project management health benchmark, and that'll kind of guide you through the questions there. So ultimately, as you talk with your team, as you send out a questionnaire, as you do the health benchmark, you'll arrive at the foundational issues that you've got. And you'll find out whether, it's the tool that's getting in the way. Often you'll find out that it might be more related to process issues or habits, or it might be misaligned expectations, usually a mix of all of these. But people, surface level, they'll be talking a lot about the tool a lot, or trying to, it's kind of like a masking tactic almost, that you say it's the tool, but it's actually the habits, so to speak. If only the tool could do this, if only the tool could do that, which might save you a little bit of time on particular steps in your workflows. But really, if you had better habits and better discipline, you would be able to kind of circumvent the limitations of the tool. So what happens next, and this is not something like that you're likely to do with your team. Working with us, the next step and how deep it goes is we design a whole blueprint of how your ClickUp workspace, so the whole ClickUp implementation should look like, divided into, and this is kind of our recommended hierarchy. There's a growth space, a delivery space, an operation space, and a process library. Let me briefly show you what this looks like in practice. So this is our demo ClickUp portal. So this is we call this whole thing what's called DuckDuckGrow here in the top left. This is a workspace. This is a space called growth, and it's divided into folders, marketing and sales. This is a space called operations, and self-explanatory. This is where your marketing and sales work lives, divided into particular categories. Within operations, you've also got categories. So growth is everything that you do to get pipeline. Delivery is everything you do to deliver to your clients. Operations is everything else that is needed to run the business. And the key part really is the delivery space, where, and this is a question a lot of agencies have, how should I manage my client work within ClickUp? What we recommend is you've got one space called delivery. Each client is a folder. And again, we've seen various ideas here. Each client is a space, each client is a list. We recommend that each client is a folder. Within that folder, you've got lists that relate to, there's almost always a review and a strategy list for so-called everything else. And then the particular contracts or like service lines you might have with them are these lists. And within the context of this presentation, this is about as deep as I can go. So these are the three spaces. And then the fourth one is the process library. Talk about this in a little bit more detail in a second, but just as an initial view, this is a separate space within your ClickUp workspace. I'm trying to think of the people who are on ClickUp right now. You've got a separate space where all the model tasks live. Now, some of you might know that ClickUp has a template center. You can save templates there and deploy templates from the template center. Should you still use the ClickUp template center? Yes, but the ClickUp template center doesn't allow you to have a view like this, where you can go through all of your model tasks, all of the processes that you've got, all of the templates that you've got, and review them, check what the steps are. Let me show you one example. So within delivery, you can have task templates, list templates, even the whole folder templates. You can deploy 150 tasks at once if you want, through one template, if that's what you want for a particular use case. So for example, you can deploy this whole client onboarding list of tasks containing just a few, well, really three, what we call parent tasks, so kind of high-level tasks. But within those, you've got the steps in the system. And here we get to an actual example of like what this looks like in practice. So for client onboarding, for example, every time you onboard a new client, this is what you should be striving towards. It's this detailed. You've got subtasks for particular roles within your organization to go through all of the steps needed to onboard a new client, with templates in there, with detailed instructions, with particular links, all connected so that one task is blocking the other, is blocking the other, is blocking the other. They get unblocked progressively, and you know how to go through the whole process. So now, being cognizant of the time, I will need to cut this a little bit short, but let me briefly take you through the other steps in the process. So once you've done this initial research, you should go into the build phase, where you're putting together, what the system looks like. You maybe have this blueprint or an idea of how the space should be organized. Maybe you watch some of our videos, you have an idea of what you want. You start implementing that within ClickUp, migrating your work, migrating your clients, all of that stuff. Then you'll be thinking, okay, we should build a process library for ourselves, but we have 70 different processes. Where do we start? You should prioritize how you build the processes. When you go to our resources section, there's a process prioritization worksheet there that you can basically use to assess which processes you should work on first. Basically, you want to ask yourself for each process 3 questions. How frequently do we run the process? How much do we have a need to document it? How painful it is if we don't have it documented? And then for each of those, you'll get a score, and the highest score determines what you should be working on first. This gets turned into, as I've just shown you, templates within the system. Here you can also see that there's particular roles for each of these steps. There's a particular work category that affects dashboards and reporting, out of scope for today. But for each of these steps have a particular work category. The roles are particularly interesting because you might have 5 different strategists in your team. So you don't want these tasks to be pre-assigned to a particular person. But once you do know the strategist for a particular project, you want everything with the strategist tag to be assigned to John. And you can do that with a particular view. And again, we've got, and again, I recommend ZenPilot.com/training to dive deeper into that. Then you've got a Gantt view of the whole project. Again, you can remap, you can move the timeline, because timelines do slip, don't they? And then you can start building your way towards a whole process library. Then you get to the training part. Within our system, there's pre-recorded training. The whole setup is laid out. If you're doing this yourself, you want to record Loom videos ahead of time. You want to do live training, and you want to implement some rules. As one of the last pieces here, as we are a little bit short on time, I'm recognizing one of the second to last pieces. I promise you the 10 commandments of ClickUp commandments of agency project management. Briefly, what you should be striving towards in terms of standards is, if it's not in ClickUp on our system, it didn't happen. Due dates are really important. As I already mentioned, for subtasks, for particular steps in a project, the due date is the DO date, so when you should actually perform a certain task, but also the due date of a particular deliverable is important as well. And this relates to commandment number 4 here, actually, leave a trail. If you're moving a due date, you should be leaving a comment explaining why, informing the relevant stakeholders, etc. It's important to be, again, that granular, that disciplined, and that standardized in the way you run your project management. So number 3, going back, is track your time, because we want to know where the time is going, or what we're getting out of that time investment. This is about intel. It's not about micromanagement, but about knowing where we are actually finding a good return on investment in terms of time versus the money made, and where we maybe aren't. Follow the framework. Everything else relates to that. Building assets. This can be processes in the process library, as I mentioned. This can be also about building assets like I mentioned before. You can have a tech stack catalog in ClickUp. You can have a people management system in ClickUp as well, where every row is a person within your company, and you can have, it's almost like an intranet that you can run within ClickUp. And again, a lot of people would say ClickUp is a project management tool. It can't do that, but it actually can. And it's very flexible, so you can set it up exactly the way you want. The process live where the work gets done. This is part of the benefit of having a process library or a template library within ClickUp. Is you'll be able to just take these templates and apply them within ClickUp. Now, being realistic, not everything can be done in ClickUp. ClickUp has docs. You can write your blog post there, for example, and we do, because also ClickUp has a good AI writer that we're using. But if you're writing your blogs in Google Docs or Butter Docs, I've heard is becoming more popular, you can have that. The rule that I've got in my head each time is you should be able to reach everything through ClickUp. So if it's not in ClickUp directly, there should be a link. And ideally links both ways. So if there's a Google Doc, the doc links to the relevant task, and the ClickUp task links to the doc. That way you've got this bi-directional link. And the other commandments are plan for the unplanned, build healthy habits. A lot of this relates to that. This is about kind of the daily morning routine of what you do in ClickUp, the time when you log off. And we actually do this on our calendar everybody's got a slot on their calendar, which is not a meeting, but like their daily setup routine and shutdown routine. So the setup routine is check ClickUp, make sure you don't have overdues, make sure they're remapped to realistic when you're going to get these tasks done. Then for the shutdown routine, it's check ClickUp again, make sure overdues are again, or tasks that you didn't get to today are properly managed. That you left these comments of why a certain task is not you didn't get to it on a particular day. If there's something that happened on Slack, a conversation that should result in work for you to be done, make sure that's translated into ClickUp at the end of the day. Fill out your scorecard, but that's a separate issue, not ClickUp related, and that's the end of your day. And then the final rule is it's not personal. A lot of this is team members keeping each other accountable, reminding each other about the system. Leadership plays a part. The role of the ClickUp champion also plays a part, and I'll talk about that for just 2 minutes in a moment. But none of this is personal. This is all about us rowing in the same direction and being more efficient and having bigger impact. In the moment, sometimes when somebody reminds you again, hey, you've got some overdue tasks, you need to handle them, and it needs to be handled every day, not at the end of your week. It can feel a little bit grating, but it is actually in the service of a greater good, which is clean project management data, your bigger impact, and also giving, if you're an individual contributor, if you have tasks properly tracked in ClickUp and leadership is looking at ClickUp, this is your way of indicating, hey, I got this much done. All of my tasks, look at them, look at how much I closed, and that helps them understand your impact. Then we get into the launch phase of it. What's likely to happen is, first of all, upon launch, you'll have some people who kind of are flowing through the system quite well. Others will need additional training, but this is also the time when you start building habits. You should have already run previous training on habits and how the system should be used, but this is when people are starting to actually test boundaries, almost like a toddler does. Okay, the training said I should update ClickUp every day, but what if I update it every 2 days or at the end of the week? And this is where you should come in very quickly, very early, and say, these are the standards, we all stick to the standards. You can highlight the people who are doing great. You can have conversations with those that are falling behind, and just keep underlining the importance of this. And there's more that goes into the launch phase, but that is one of the most key issues. And finally, optimize. I promised 2 words about the role of the ClickUp champion. You should have somebody kind of anointed within your organization, so to speak, to be the ClickUp champion. That somebody should not be within leadership. And that role is not full-time, so there isn't anybody who's got like a full title of I am the ClickUp champion at Acme Inc. But somebody should have, and typically this might be a project manager in your team. That's quite typical. This is somebody that's tasked with actually monitoring the system. As leadership, you might be spearheading the migration itself, but at some point you need to get to other bigger fish to fry. You want to leave somebody who's going to check every day. Are there overdue tasks? Are there unassigned tasks? Are there tasks that do not have a due date? Is time tracking being used? Are people reading their notifications? And any other major issues are being escalated kind of higher up. So that ClickUp champion has a daily checklist, a weekly checklist, a monthly one, and then sometimes a quarterly one. And this role can go deeper, or it can stay a little bit more surface level. This person can be primarily responsible for the health of your workspace, of your ClickUp workspace, and that's the main issue that they should solve. Once they start reading diving deep into the information in your system about productivity, or like I mentioned, the data on top of ClickUp data about profitability of projects utilization, that person can over time start telling you more about which of the work that you're doing is the most impactful. But primarily the ClickUp champion is about stewarding these habits and sending, to be honest, in practice, this boils down to sending a lot of friendly reminders. Your ClickUp is out of date, or you didn't track time on this task, or you're not doing tasks for your meetings, and this is important because it affects your capacity. So we need to know when you spent time on these meetings. Okay, so this is about as much as I'm able to logically present for today. Let me just check if there's anything else I might have missed, or if you have questions, now would be a great time to drop them in. I did show the process library. So once again, I would recommend checking out particularly ZenPilot.com/training. This is our newest resource that we've got here. You'll learn more about the end state that you should aim at. You'll learn more about the implementation process. Here it says our implementation process in terms of what we do for clients, but you can model this for your own project management transformation if you want. Learn more about the hierarchy and about particular kind of pieces of the system as well. How you should handle it, even by role. So ClickUp for account managers, for project managers, for individual contributors following our system, and a lot more. You can check that out at ZenPilot.com/training. And what else can I recommend for you today? We didn't have questions for just today, which is fine. I hope if somebody's watching the recording, you found this useful. Remember, if you want to just have a direct call with our team and solve this in a more consultational way, go to ZenPilot.com/call. Check out our resources. If you prefer, if you for some reason you have an aversion to watching videos and you prefer the written medium, we've got in-depth ebooks as well, leading you through the system. Again, and I've talked with clients like that as well. And teams like that, where they just took the system and implemented it in a DIY fashion, at least at first, and then came back for additional consultation with their team. Or some people just stay with DIY. It happens in various ways. And for more ZenPilot training, for more presentations like this, not just from me, but from our head of growth, Jeff, our CEO, Gray, and other pilots at ZenPilot, don't forget to check out our newsletter. I send it out. It's called First Class Operations, ZenPilot.com/newsletter. I talk about agency operations. I talk about ClickUp. I leave links to all our resources. I leave links to agency journey episodes where I interview agency owners about what works for them. And also, there's the letter part of the newsletter. Last time I wrote about Keanu Reeves' favorite sandwiches and what that taught me about business. Okay, it's hard to explain from an external perspective, but it's a good read, I've been told. That's about it for the presentation here today. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you, Leanne, for the invitation.
Awesome, thank you so much, Jakub. That was great, actually. I loved it. I really like that it comes down to the habits, essentially. Getting your project management right, it's kicking out those bad habits, making sure that you are being religious about doing it every day, making sure you tick all the boxes and getting it down to that small level. So it's not overwhelming. You can just tick through the small projects and then it's done.
Exactly.
And a lot of the way that you've set that out, I know it's specific to ClickUp here, but a lot of that can be applied to any project management tool that you're using as well. So it translates mostly. I'm sure there's a lot of specific ClickUp features there that look really cool. Make me want to check out ClickUp now.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth here, and they keep adding more features. They've had good velocity in terms of adding new features, and also in terms of adding more AI features, which was out of scope for today. But certainly, it's a tool worth at least getting acquainted with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate you jumping in and presenting for us. It's been really useful, and we'll get all the links out to everybody watching the replay and that was here today. As well as links of where they can find you, and if they have once they've got their project management sorted, if you need if you need assistance with the fulfillment side, always happy to help with both. So
yeah, definitely reach out to us. I should have also mentioned, add me on LinkedIn. I'm Jakub Grajcar on LinkedIn. I post about ZenPilot stuff, I post about agency operations stuff, sometimes about content marketing, so happy to connect there if you have additional questions. Happy to talk.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'll let you get on with your day now and wind up mine.
Yeah. Thanks, Leanne.
All right. Thanks. Bye.